There is a moment in every life when a person realizes that the greatest force working against them is not the world, the past, or the people who doubted them. It is the uncontrolled mind within, the anger that speaks before wisdom arrives, the fear that turns possibility into retreat, the impulse that trades tomorrow for a few seconds of relief. Most people try to control circumstances while remaining controlled by every emotion those circumstances create. But when you learn to command your inner world, the outer world loses its power to own you. This book is not about becoming cold or impossible to hurt. It is about becoming strong enough to feel deeply without surrendering your direction. It is about pausing when others react, thinking when others panic, and choosing your response when life tries to choose it for you. Master your emotions, and you take back control of your life. Chapter 1. The moment you stop obeying every feeling. Most people assume that emotional control means suppressing emotion. They imagine a disciplined person as someone who never becomes angry, afraid, disappointed, jealous, or hurt. That idea is not only unrealistic, it is dangerous. Suppressed emotion does not disappear, it changes form. Anger becomes resentment, fear becomes avoidance, grief becomes numbness, shame becomes defensiveness. What is buried alive eventually returns with more force. Real emotional mastery begins with a different understanding. An emotion is a signal, not a command. It can inform you without ruling you. It can alert you without deciding for you. It can pass through you without becoming your identity. Think about how quickly emotion takes control. A message arrives, and before you fully understand it, your chest tightens. Someone questions your ability, and your mind begins preparing an attack. A plan fails, and a single disappointing event becomes evidence that your entire future is doomed. The emotional response is often immediate. The meaning you attach to it comes a second later, then the behavior follows. The problem is not that the emotion appeared. The problem is that you treated its arrival as an order. Fear says, run, and you run. Anger says, strike, and you strike. Insecurity says, prove yourself, and you perform for people who have not earned that power over you. Loneliness says, accept anything, and you lower your standards just to avoid sitting with yourself. The first act of self-mastery is learning to separate what you feel from what you do. You can feel anger and remain silent long enough to understand it. You can feel fear and continue moving. You can feel jealousy and use it as information about what you desire instead of turning it into bitterness. You can feel sadness without making permanent decisions from a temporary state. This separation is where freedom begins. When you say, I am angry, your mind hears an identity. When you say, I am experiencing anger, your mind hears a condition. Identity feels permanent. A condition can change. Language matters because the words you use become the frame through which you interpret your inner world. You are not the storm. You are the person observing the storm. You are not the thought. You are the awareness noticing the thought. You are not the impulse. You are the one who decides whether the impulse becomes action. This may sound simple, but it is one of the most demanding disciplines a human being can develop. The body often reacts before the conscious mind understands what is happening. Your heart accelerates. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your muscles tighten. Your attention narrows. The brain begins searching for danger, insult, rejection, or proof that the worst possibility is true. At that point, most people stop seeing reality. They see only what the emotion permits them to see. An angry person notices every sign of disrespect and ignores every sign of misunderstanding. An anxious person notices every risk and ignores every resource. A jealous person notices every advantage someone else has and ignores the price they paid to earn it. A ashamed person notices every flaw and ignores every sign of growth. Emotions do not merely create feelings, they filter perception. That is why the same event can produce completely different responses in different people. One person receives criticism and hears humiliation. Another hears information. One person faces delay and sees failure. Another sees preparation. One person is rejected and decides they are worthless. Another decides the situation was not aligned. The event matters, but the interpretation controls the experience. Your life is shaped less by what happens to you than by the meaning you repeatedly assign to what happens. This does not mean you should pretend every painful event is positive. Betrayal is painful, loss is painful, failure is painful, injustice is real. Emotional mastery is not dishonest optimism. It is the refusal to let pain write conclusions that pain is not qualified to write. Pain can tell you that something hurts. It cannot tell you that you will never recover. Fear can tell you that something is uncertain. It cannot tell you that you are incapable. Anger can tell you that a boundary may have been crossed. It cannot tell you that destruction is the only response. The disciplined mind listens to emotion, questions it, and then decides. Ask yourself, what is this emotion trying to protect? What story am I telling myself? What facts support that story? What facts challenge it? What action will I respect when this feeling passes? Those questions create distance between the stimulus and the response. In that distance, you recover your authority. Every time you act without examining an emotion, you strengthen the habit of reaction. Every time you pause, examine, and choose, you strengthen the habit of self-command. Your brain learns through repetition. If you repeatedly explode when frustrated, frustration becomes linked to explosion. If you repeatedly escape when anxious, anxiety becomes linked to avoidance. If you repeatedly seek comfort when bored, boredom becomes linked to distraction. What feels like personality is often practiced behavior. That truth should not discourage you. It should empower you. What has been practiced can be retrained. You do not need to become a completely different person overnight. You need to stop giving every feeling immediate access to your mouth, your hands, your money, your relationships, and your future. Begin with one rule. No major action during emotional flooding. Do not send the message while your hands are shaking. Do not make the purchase while you are desperate for relief. Do not end the relationship in the peak of anger. Do not quit in the lowest hour. Do not promise forever in the highest hour. Intense emotion makes temporary truth feel permanent. Delay is not weakness. Delay is protection. There will be situations where immediate action is necessary, especially when safety is involved. But most emotional decisions are not emergencies. They only feel urgent because the nervous system wants relief. That urgency is one of emotion's greatest illusions. The angry mind wants to speak now. The anxious mind wants certainty now. The insecure mind wants reassurance now. The addicted mind wants comfort now. Emotional discipline often means becoming willing to feel discomfort without instantly solving it. You discover that you can survive the urge without obeying it. You can survive being misunderstood without explaining yourself to everyone. You can survive uncertainty without forcing an answer. You can survive rejection without begging. You can survive anger without becoming cruel. You can survive sadness without abandoning your responsibilities. The moment you realize that a feeling can be endured, its control begins to weaken. You do not master emotion by winning one dramatic battle. You master it through hundreds of quiet decisions that no one sees. The breath you take before replying. The walk you choose instead of the argument. The night you sleep before deciding. The truth you admit instead of the excuse you repeat. The boundary you keep even when loneliness pressures you to break it. These decisions seem small, but they build the architecture of a powerful mind. A person who can govern their inner state is difficult to manipulate. Praise does not make them reckless. Criticism does not make them collapse. Pressure does not make them betray their values. Temptation does not make them forget their future. They remain human, but they are no longer easily controlled. That is the first principle of this book. Feel everything. Obey selectively. Your emotions deserve attention, but they do not deserve absolute authority. The next time a powerful feeling rises, do not ask, "How do I get rid of this?" Ask, "What is this trying to tell me, and what response serves the life I am building?" That question moves you from reaction to leadership, and the first person you must learn to lead is yourself. Chapter 2. Read the signal before you fight the storm. An emotion becomes more dangerous when it remains unnamed. A vague sense of discomfort can spread through the mind like smoke. You know something is wrong, but you do not know what because the feeling is unclear. The mind begins inventing explanations. You become irritated with the wrong person. You avoid the wrong task. You blame the wrong cause. You try to solve the symptom while the real issue remains untouched. Emotional intelligence begins with precision. There is a difference between anger and humiliation. There is a difference between anxiety and anticipation. There is a difference between sadness and disappointment. There is a difference between loneliness and the need for meaningful connection. There is a difference between guilt, which says you did something wrong, and shame, which says you are wrong. When you use one broad word for every uncomfortable state, you lose the ability to respond accurately. Imagine a doctor treating every pain with the same medicine. That is how most people treat emotion. They feel bad, so they distract themselves. They scroll, eat, spend, argue, isolate, work excessively, seek attention, or chase entertainment. The goal is not understanding. The goal is escape. Escape works for a moment. Then the feeling returns, often with interest. The disciplined mind does not immediately ask, "How can I stop feeling this?" It asks, "What exactly is this?" Name the emotion. Locate it in the body. Identify the event that triggered it. Notice the story attached to it. Then determine whether the emotion is pointing to a real problem, an old wound, a distorted interpretation, or a temporary physical state. This process turns chaos into information. Suppose you feel angry after a conversation. Anger may be the surface emotion, but beneath it could be embarrassment, fear of losing respect, exhaustion, or the feeling that your effort was ignored. If you respond only to the anger, you may attack. If you identify the deeper emotion, you can communicate. Instead of saying, "You never respect me," you may discover the truth is, "When my contribution was dismissed, I felt insignificant." The second statement is harder to say because it requires honesty. But honesty solves what aggression often hides. Many people use anger because anger feels powerful, sadness feels vulnerable, fear feels weak, hurt feels exposed. So the mind converts softer emotions into a harder one. Anger becomes armor. But armor worn too long becomes a prison. A person who cannot admit hurt will keep creating conflict. A person who cannot admit fear will keep pretending to be certain. A person who cannot admit insecurity will keep competing with people who are not competing with them. A person who cannot admit loneliness will keep accepting shallow connection. Self-awareness is not comfortable. It removes excuses. It forces you to see that some of your strongest reactions are not responses to the present moment. They are echoes from the past. A delayed reply feels like abandonment because someone once disappeared without explanation. A correction feels like rejection because love once depended on perfect performance. A disagreement feels like danger because your early environment punished honesty. A successful person feels threatening because you learned to measure your worth through comparison. The present event may be small, but it touches an old emotional bruise. That is why the reaction feels larger than the situation. When your response is bigger than the moment, ask what earlier pain has entered the room. This does not mean every emotion comes from childhood. Sometimes the current situation is exactly as harmful as it appears, but emotional maturity requires you to distinguish between present evidence and old expectation. Your nervous system can remember what your conscious mind has tried to forget. A tone of voice, facial expression, delay, smell, place, or phrase can activate a survival response before you know why. The body is not trying to sabotage you, it is trying to protect you using outdated information. Respect the protective intention, but update the strategy. Tell yourself, this feeling is real, but it may not be accurate. I will check the facts. Checking the facts means separating observation from interpretation. Observation. The person did not reply for 6 hours. Interpretation. They do not care about me. Observation. My manager asked me to revise the work. Interpretation. I am incompetent. Observation. My friend spent time with someone else. Interpretation. I am being replaced. Observation. The plan changed. Interpretation. Everything is falling apart. The mind crosses from observation to interpretation so quickly that the interpretation feels like fact. Emotional discipline slows that process. Ask what else could be true. Maybe the person was occupied. Maybe the revision is part of normal improvement. Maybe friendship is not a competition. Maybe a changed plan is not a ruined future. You are not required to believe the most comforting explanation. You are required to avoid treating the most painful explanation as automatically true. This is where curiosity becomes a weapon against emotional chaos. Curiosity and panic cannot fully occupy the mind at the same time. Panic demands a conclusion. Curiosity allows investigation. Panic says, I know what this means. Curiosity asks, what am I missing? The more accurately you read the signal, the more intelligently you can act. Fear may signal danger, but it may also signal growth. Before an important conversation, fear does not necessarily mean stop. It may mean the moment matters. Jealousy may reveal insecurity, but it may also reveal a neglected ambition. Instead of attacking the person you envy, study what their success awakens in you. Boredom may signal that a task lacks stimulation, but it may also reveal your dependence on constant novelty. Guilt may signal that you violated your values, but excessive guilt may reveal an unrealistic belief that you are responsible for everyone's happiness. Sadness may signal loss, but it may also create space for reflection, acceptance, and a new direction. Every emotion contains information, but not every interpretation is wise. Your task is to become a skilled translator of your inner language. The world teaches people to monitor everything except themselves. They track money, messages, trends, opinions, news, and the behavior of others. Yet they remain strangers to their own patterns. You cannot lead a mind you refuse to study. Begin paying attention, not with shame, but with seriousness. Notice what pulls you off center. Notice what restores you. Notice what you repeatedly tolerate. Notice what you repeatedly fear. Notice which situations make you abandon your standards. The quality of your future depends on the accuracy of your self-knowledge. When you can name what you feel, understand where it comes from, and question the meaning you have assigned to it, emotion stops being a mysterious force. It becomes data. And data, when examined clearly, can guide better decisions. Chapter 3. The pause that gives you power. Between what happens and what you do next, there is a space. For the undisciplined mind, that space is almost invisible. The reaction seems automatic. The insult arrives, and the reply leaves. The temptation appears, and the hand reaches. The fear rises, and the opportunity is refused. The discomfort begins, and distraction follows. The disciplined mind expands that space. That pause may last 10 seconds, 10 minutes, 1 night, or 1 week. Its length is less important than its purpose. The pause prevents a temporary state from making a permanent decision. You do not lose control all at once. Control is lost in the fraction of a second when you decide that relief matters more than consequence. The pause interrupts that bargain. When emotion is intense, your brain prioritizes immediate survival and short-term relief. Long-term thinking becomes weaker. This is why people say things they later regret, spend money they cannot afford, return to relationships they know are destructive, abandon commitments, and sabotage opportunities. In the moment, the action feels necessary. Later, when the emotional wave passes, the cost becomes clear. Regret is often the price of a missing pause. You can train this pause as a practical skill. Begin with the body, because the body is where emotional acceleration first appears. Slow your breathing. Lengthen the exhale. Unclench your jaw. Drop your shoulders. Place both feet on the ground. Relax your hands. Look around the room and identify where you are. These actions send a message to the nervous system that the situation can be observed, not merely survived. Breathing alone will not solve every problem, but a regulated body gives the mind a better chance to think. When the body is alarmed, the mind becomes narrow. When the body settles, options return. The next step is to delay expression. This does not mean silence forever. It means refusing to speak from the most distorted version of yourself. Say, I need time to think. Say, I do not want to answer while I am angry. Say, let me return to this when I can speak clearly. These sentences protect relationships, reputations, and futures. Some people will pressure you to respond immediately because your emotional reaction gives them an advantage. They may accuse you of avoiding the issue. They may provoke harder. They may demand an answer before you have one. Do not confuse pressure with obligation. You have the right to think before you commit. You have the right to calm down before you communicate. You have the right to refuse an emotional trap. A pause is not avoidance when you return to the issue with clarity. It becomes avoidance only when you use delay to escape responsibility. The purpose of the pause is not to disappear. It is to prepare. During the pause, ask 3 questions. What happened? What am I feeling? What outcome do I want? The first question grounds you in facts. The second creates awareness. The third brings back direction. Without the third question, emotion controls the conversation. If the outcome you want is understanding, then humiliation will not serve it. If the outcome you want is a fair decision, then panic will not improve it. If the outcome you want is self-respect, then begging, threatening, or revenge will move you farther away. Every reaction should be measured against the outcome you claim to want. This exposes a common contradiction. People say they want peace, but they keep choosing words that produce war. They say they want trust, but they hide the truth. They say they want growth, but they avoid discomfort. They say they want financial freedom, but they spend to regulate emotion. They say they want a strong body, but they surrender to every craving. Wanting an outcome is meaningless if your repeated responses oppose it. The pause gives you a chance to align behavior with intention. Imagine someone disrespects you publicly. Your first impulse may be to attack. The crowd, your pride, and your anger demand immediate action. But what outcome do you want? If you want to demonstrate strength, uncontrolled rage may prove the opposite. Anyone who can provoke you can control you. The person who remains measured under pressure communicates a deeper power. Calm does not mean passive. You can be calm and firm. You can set a boundary without shouting. You can leave without explaining. You can correct a lie without becoming cruel. You can defend yourself without losing yourself. Power is not the ability to create the loudest reaction. Power is the ability to choose the most effective one. The pause also protects you from positive emotion. People often understand the danger of anger and fear, but excitement can be equally reckless. Excitement makes promises that discipline must later keep. It can push you into unrealistic commitments, rushed investments, premature trust, and decisions built on fantasy. A disciplined person pauses before saying yes, as carefully as they pause before saying no. Ask whether the opportunity still makes sense after the excitement settles. Ask what the cost will be when motivation becomes ordinary. Ask whether you are responding to evidence or imagination. Emotional control is not only about surviving painful states, it is also about not being intoxicated by pleasant ones. Praise can create overconfidence. Attraction can hide incompatibility. Success can produce carelessness. Hope can ignore risk. Pleasure can weaken standards. The pause protects you from being carried away in either direction. To strengthen this skill, create rules before emotion arrives. Never respond to a hostile message immediately. Never make a major purchase after midnight. Never argue while physically exhausted. Never make a permanent decision on the worst day. Never promise what you have not calculated. Never return to a destructive situation because of one lonely evening. Pre-decided rules reduce the number of negotiations you must have with yourself under pressure. When the mind is calm, it can create standards. When the mind is emotional, it tries to create exceptions. Your rules become the bridge between the person you want to be and the person you become in difficult moments. The pause is also where identity changes. Each time you interrupt an old response, you prove that the pattern is not absolute. You may still feel the urge, but the urge no longer has complete control. That is progress. Do not wait until you feel no anger to believe you have changed. Change is demonstrated when anger appears and your behavior is different. Do not wait until fear disappears. Change is demonstrated when fear appears and you continue. Do not wait until temptation stops. Change is demonstrated when temptation appears and you honor your commitment. Mastery is not the absence of inner conflict. It is the ability to act according to your values while conflict is present. At first, the pause may feel unnatural. Reaction has been practiced for years. Silence may feel weak. Delayed gratification may feel unbearable. Thinking may feel slow compared with impulse. Stay with it. Every controlled response makes the next one slightly easier. The nervous system learns that discomfort can be tolerated. The mind learns that urgency is not always truth. Your identity begins to shift from "I am an emotional person" to "I am a person who can feel emotion without being ruled by it." That identity is earned one pause at a time. Before the next reaction, breathe. Before the next message, wait. Before the next promise, calculate. Before the next decision, return to your desired outcome. The space between stimulus and response is where your future is being built. Expand that space, and you expand your freedom. Chapter 4. Discipline the voice inside your head. You live with a narrator that never stops speaking. It comments on your appearance, your performance, your relationships, your mistakes, your future, and your worth. It interprets every silence, every setback, and every uncertain moment. That narrator is your inner voice, and its influence is enormous. A thought repeated often enough becomes a belief. A belief repeated long enough becomes an identity. An identity shapes behavior. Behavior produces results. Then those results appear to confirm the original thought. This is how a sentence in the mind can become a life. "I always fail" creates hesitation. Hesitation reduces effort. Reduced effort weakens performance. Weak performance is then used as evidence that failure was inevitable. People cannot be trusted creates distance. Distance prevents intimacy. The lack of intimacy becomes proof that no one is truly there. "I am not disciplined" becomes permission to quit. Every unfinished commitment strengthens the identity. The cycle continues until you interrupt it. Most people do not examine their inner dialogue because it sounds familiar. Familiarity is mistaken for truth, but many of the thoughts in your mind were inherited, absorbed, repeated, or created during moments of pain. They may sound like your voice even when they began as someone else's judgment. A parent's criticism becomes your standard. A teacher's prediction becomes your limit. A former partner's rejection becomes your self-image. A humiliating moment becomes your permanent definition. The disciplined mind asks, "Who taught me to speak to myself this way, and why have I continued?" This question does not remove responsibility, it returns responsibility. You may not have chosen the first message, but you are now responsible for whether it remains in command. Controlling your inner voice does not mean replacing every negative thought with empty praise. Telling yourself that you are perfect is not discipline, it is denial. The goal is not flattering self-talk. The goal is accurate, useful, and constructive self-talk. Instead of "I am a failure," say, "I failed at this attempt, and I need to understand why." Instead of "I cannot handle this," say, "This is difficult, and I can take the next necessary step." Instead of "Everything is ruined," say, "Something important went wrong, but the entire future has not been decided." Instead of "I have no confidence," say, "I am waiting to feel ready," instead of building confidence through action. Accurate language reduces emotional exaggeration. Words like always, never, everyone, no one, everything, and nothing often reveal a mind under emotional pressure. One mistake becomes "I always ruin things." One rejection becomes "No one will ever choose me." One setback becomes "Nothing works." These words make pain larger than reality. Catch them. When you hear an absolute statement in your mind, challenge it. Is it literally true? Has there never been an exception? What evidence are you ignoring? What is the most precise description of the situation? Precision creates proportion. Proportion makes problems manageable. The inner voice must also learn the difference between responsibility and abuse. Some people believe harshness is the only path to improvement. They insult themselves in the name of discipline. They think cruelty will force better performance. But constant self-attack drains the energy needed for change. Shame does not create stable discipline. It creates avoidance, secrecy, and collapse. A strong coach does not say, "You are worthless." A strong coach says, "That performance was below your standard. Here is what must change. Begin again." Your inner voice should operate the same way. Hold yourself accountable without turning every error into a character assassination. You can say, "I broke my commitment," without saying, "I am incapable of commitment." You can say, "I behaved badly," without saying, "I am permanently bad." You can say, "I avoided the truth," without deciding that you can never become courageous. Behavior must be confronted, but identity must remain open to growth. A useful inner voice has three qualities. It is honest, calm, and directional. Honest means it does not excuse the problem. Calm means it does not create unnecessary panic. Directional means it tells you what to do next. When you make a mistake, the undisciplined inner voice circles the event. It replays the embarrassment, predicts judgment, and punishes you without producing action. The disciplined inner voice extracts the lesson, makes repair where possible, and redirects attention. Ask, what is the lesson? What is the repair? What is the next move? This turns guilt into responsibility. Your inner voice becomes especially important under pressure. In difficult moments, the mind needs commands that are simple enough to follow. Breathe. Stay here. Do not send it. Finish the next 10 minutes. Tell the truth. Leave the room. Make the call. Return tomorrow. These short commands cut through emotional noise. They prevent the mind from trying to solve the entire future while overwhelmed. You do not need a complete life plan in the middle of a crisis. You need the next intelligent action. The inner voice can also be trained through repetition before pressure arrives. Athletes rehearse movements. Musicians rehearse performances. A disciplined person rehearses responses. Imagine the situation that usually triggers you. Picture the criticism, delay, temptation, conflict, or uncertainty. Then practice the language you want available. I can listen without defending immediately. I can be disappointed without becoming destructive. I can feel the urge and still keep the promise. I do not need to prove myself in this room. I will not trade long-term respect for short-term relief. Rehearsal builds familiarity. Familiarity increases access when emotion is high. Another essential discipline is learning to stop arguing with thoughts that do not deserve a trial. Not every thought requires analysis. Some are mental noise. The mind can produce disturbing, irrational, selfish, fearful, or absurd ideas simply because it is a thought-generating system. A thought is not a confession. It is not a prophecy. It is not proof of character. It is an event in the mind. You can notice a thought and let it pass without feeding it. Imagine thoughts as vehicles passing on a road. You do not need to enter every vehicle. You do not need to follow it to its destination. You can observe it and remain where you are. The more you wrestle with certain thoughts, the stronger they feel. Attention gives them energy. Sometimes the disciplined response is not contradiction, it is disengagement. There is that fear again. There is the old comparison. There is the story that I am behind. You name it, but you do not build a home inside it. You may not control the first thought that appears, but you can control which thought receives authority, repetition, and action. Your inner voice is rehearsing your future every day. Train it to tell the truth. Train it to remain calm. Train it to give direction. Then, when the world becomes loud, you will still be able to hear the voice that leads you forward. Chapter 5. Break the trigger. Break the pattern. A trigger is not just something that creates emotion. It is a doorway into a practiced sequence. Something happens. A meaning is assigned. Emotion rises. An urge appears. Behavior follows. A consequence arrives. Then the brain remembers the sequence. Over time, the pattern becomes fast enough to feel automatic. You feel stressed, so you eat. You feel ignored, so you send multiple messages. You feel criticized, so you attack. You feel bored, so you reach for your phone. You feel uncertain, so you delay. You feel lonely, so you return to someone who repeatedly harms you. The trigger changes, but the structure remains the same. To change the behavior, you must study the sequence. Most people focus only on the final action. They condemn themselves after the outburst, the binge, the purchase, the relapse, or the wasted day. But by the time the behavior occurs, the pattern has already traveled through several stages. Intervention must happen earlier. Start by identifying the trigger. Be specific. Stress is too broad. What kind of stress? A deadline? Conflict? Financial uncertainty? Feeling unprepared? Lack of sleep? Social comparison? An environment filled with distraction? The more specific the trigger, the more effective the strategy. Then identify the story. What does the trigger mean to you? A deadline may mean, I am about to be exposed. Conflict may mean, I will be abandoned. Financial uncertainty may mean, I am unsafe. A successful peer may mean, I am falling behind. An unanswered message may mean, I do not matter. The story creates the emotional charge. Next, identify the urge. What does the mind want immediately? Relief? Reassurance? Revenge? Escape? Control? Numbness? Validation? The behavior usually promises one of these rewards. This is why bad habits are not simply bad choices. They are often emotional solutions with destructive costs. The habit is doing something for you. Until you understand what, you will keep replacing one harmful behavior with another. Someone who stops overeating may begin overspending. Someone who stops checking a former partner's profile may begin obsessively working. Someone who stops arguing may begin emotionally withdrawing. The form changes, but the underlying need remains. The real question is not only, how do I stop this habit? It is, what feeling am I trying not to feel, and what healthier response can meet the actual need? If the need is rest, distraction will not fully satisfy it. If the need is connection, attention from strangers will not satisfy it. If the need is competence, self-criticism will not build it. If the need is safety, controlling everyone will not create it. If the need is meaning, constant stimulation will not provide it. You must match the solution to the need. This requires tolerance for the period between urge and relief. An old pattern offers immediate reward. A healthy pattern often gives slower reward. That delay is where many people return to the old behavior. The phone gives instant stimulation. Focused work gives satisfaction later. Angry expression gives instant release. Calm communication gives resolution later. Spending gives instant excitement. Saving gives freedom later. Avoidance gives instant comfort. Courage gives confidence later. Emotional discipline means learning to prefer a delayed reward over immediate escape. One way to break a trigger is to change the environment before the pattern begins. Willpower is useful, but it is unreliable when exhausted, stressed, or emotionally flooded. Environment reduces the number of battles willpower must fight. But environment alone is not enough. Some triggers will follow you. Criticism, uncertainty, rejection, delay, and discomfort are part of life. You need a replacement response. A replacement response must be simple, available, and connected to the same need. When anxiety creates the urge to escape, the replacement might be 5 minutes of slow breathing, followed by the smallest possible action. When anger creates the urge to attack, the replacement might be leaving the room and writing what you want to say without sending it. When loneliness creates the urge to return to a destructive relationship, the replacement might be calling a trusted person, walking in a public place, or reading your record of what the relationship cost you. When boredom creates the urge to scroll, the replacement might be 10 minutes of movement or 1 page of focused work. Do not demand that the replacement feel equally rewarding at first. It will not. The old behavior has been reinforced many times. The new behavior is weak because it is new. Repetition gives it strength. Each time you follow the new sequence, the brain learns another path. Trigger, awareness, pause, better action, better consequence. Over time, what once required effort becomes more natural. There will be setbacks. A setback does not erase the new path. It reveals where the old path is still strong. Study the relapse without dramatizing it. What happened before it? What condition made you vulnerable? Which warning sign did you ignore? What rule or support was missing? What will you change before the next trigger? Shame asks, what is wrong with me? Responsibility asks, what failed in the system? Use responsibility. A person trying to change may also need to grieve the old pattern. Harmful habits often provided comfort during difficult periods. They may have helped you survive when you lacked better tools. You do not need to hate the version of yourself that used them, but you must stop allowing yesterday's survival strategy to become tomorrow's prison. Thank the pattern for what it tried to do, then retire it. Say, this protected me once, but it is costing me now. That sentence creates compassion without surrender. Triggers also lose power when you stop organizing your identity around them. Saying, I am an angry person makes anger feel like destiny. Saying, "I learned to respond with anger," leaves room for new learning. You are not permanently impulsive. You practiced impulse. You are not permanently avoidant. You practiced escape. You are not permanently weak. You practiced surrender in certain situations. Practice can change. The process is not dramatic. It is repetitive. It may feel boring, but self-mastery is built through boring victories. Closing the application, taking the breath, leaving the room, waiting until morning, doing 10 minutes of the task, keeping the boundary, choosing not to check, returning after a setback. These actions look small from the outside. Inside the brain, they are rewriting the route between emotion and behavior. Your life changes when your patterns change. Your patterns change when your response to the trigger changes. Do not wait for the trigger to disappear. Prepare for it. Recognize it. Interrupt it. Replace the old response. Repeat until the new path becomes the one your mind knows best. Chapter 6. Train the body to support the mind. Emotional control is often discussed as if the mind floats separately from the body. It does not. Your thoughts, mood, energy, patience, and judgment are influenced by sleep, breathing, movement, nutrition, pain, hormones, illness, and physical tension. Sometimes what feels like a moral failure is partly a depleted nervous system. This does not remove responsibility. It explains why responsibility becomes harder under certain conditions. A tired brain is more reactive. A hungry body is less patient. A constantly stimulated nervous system becomes uncomfortable with silence. A body that never moves carries stress without release. A person who ignores physical limits may eventually call exhaustion a personality problem. You cannot build reliable emotional control on a body kept in permanent emergency. Begin with sleep. Sleep deprivation makes small problems feel larger. It weakens attention, increases irritability, reduces impulse control, and makes it harder to interpret social situations accurately. You may think you are surrounded by unreasonable people when you are simply exhausted. Protecting sleep is not laziness. It is preparation for better judgment. This means creating a consistent rhythm, reducing unnecessary stimulation before bed, and refusing to treat every late-night thought as an emergency. The mind becomes dramatic when tired. Problems that feel impossible at 1 in the morning often become manageable after rest. Create a rule. Do not conduct emotional trials in a sleep-deprived brain. Write the concern down. Return to it when your system is stronger. Movement is another form of emotional regulation. The body prepares for action during stress. Heart rate rises, muscles tighten, energy mobilizes. If you remain physically still while mentally replaying the threat, that energy has nowhere to go. Walking, stretching, running, lifting, or any safe movement can help complete the stress response. Movement does not erase the problem, but it changes the state from which you face it. A different state creates different thoughts. Notice how often the mind becomes clearer after a walk. The situation did not change. Your physiology changed, and perception changed with it. Breathing is the fastest bridge between body and mind. You cannot directly command your heart to slow, but you can influence it through the breath. A slower exhale tells the nervous system that immediate danger may not be present. When emotion rises, breathe in gently and exhale more slowly than you inhale. Do not force the breath. The goal is not performance. The goal is regulation. Combine the breath with orientation. Look around. Name what is actually present. Feel your feet. Notice the support beneath you. Remind the body of time and place. This is a difficult conversation, not a battlefield. This is uncertainty, not certain disaster. This is discomfort, not death. The body often responds to symbolic threats as if they are physical threats. Rejection, criticism, public embarrassment, and uncertainty can activate ancient survival systems. Your job is to update the body with current information. Physical tension also deserves attention. Many people carry emotion in the jaw, neck, shoulders, chest, stomach, and hands. They become so used to tension that relaxation feels unfamiliar. Several times a day, scan the body. Where are you bracing? What are you gripping? Can you release 10% of the tension? You do not need perfect relaxation. A small reduction can widen your capacity to choose. Food and stimulants can affect emotional stability as well. Extreme restriction, irregular meals, excessive caffeine, and constant sugar spikes can create sensations that resemble anxiety, agitation, or weakness. Again, the point is not to blame every emotion on the body. The point is to stop ignoring a major source of influence. A disciplined person learns their physical patterns. Which foods leave you stable? How much caffeine can you tolerate? What time does your judgment decline? How much sleep do you need to remain patient? How does inactivity affect your mood? Self-knowledge includes the body. The environment also enters through the senses. Noise, clutter, crowding, light, heat, and constant notifications create a background load. You may not notice each stimulus, but the nervous system notices. A calm environment cannot solve an undisciplined mind, but an unnecessarily chaotic environment makes discipline harder. Create at least one space where the system can settle. It does not need to be luxurious. It needs to be orderly enough that your attention is not constantly being pulled. Remove what creates repeated distraction. Let the space remind you of the state you want to practice. Another essential skill is recognizing your window of tolerance. This is the range in which you can feel emotion and still think, communicate, and choose. Above that window, you may become panicked, aggressive, or overwhelmed. Below it, you may become numb, disconnected, or unable to act. Mastery does not mean never leaving the window. It means recognizing when you have left and knowing how to return. When you are above the window, reduce intensity, slow the breath, lower your voice, step away, use cool water, walk, reduce stimulation, speak fewer words. When you are below the window, increase safe activation. Stand up, move, use stronger sensory input. Seek appropriate connection. Take one clear action. Bring attention back to the present. The strategy should match the state. Trying to think your way out of full panic may fail because the thinking system is partly offline. Regulate the body first, then examine the story. Trying to relax your way out of numb collapse may fail because the system needs activation, not more stillness. Move first, then engage. This is not weakness, it is skill. People who appear calm under pressure are not always naturally calm. Many have trained their bodies to recover faster. They know their warning signs. They know when to breathe, when to move, when to pause, and when to leave. Recovery speed matters more than never being activated. You will still become angry. You will still feel fear. You will still have days when the body is heavy and the mind is loud. The question is how long you remain captured. Can you return in minutes instead of hours? Can you return in hours instead of days? Can you prevent one difficult moment from becoming a destructive week? That is measurable progress. Treat the body as an ally in emotional discipline. Feed it adequately. Rest it. Move it. Breathe through it. Notice its signals. Stop demanding clarity from a system you repeatedly exhaust. Your mind may be the leader, but the body is the ground it stands on. Strengthen the ground, and the leader becomes harder to overthrow. Chapter 7. Protect your peace without losing your humanity. Your emotional state is not shaped only by what happens inside you. It is also shaped by what you repeatedly allow around you. Some people bring honesty, calm, and mutual respect. Others bring confusion, manipulation, guilt, competition, and instability. If you remain exposed to emotional chaos long enough, you may begin calling it normal. A boundary is the line where responsibility becomes clear. It says, I am responsible for my choices, and you are responsible for yours. It says, I can care about your feelings without surrendering my judgment. It says, your disappointment does not automatically mean I have done something wrong. Many people fail to set boundaries because they fear conflict, rejection, or being seen as selfish. They say yes while feeling resentment. They tolerate disrespect to preserve connection. They explain themselves repeatedly, hoping the other person will finally approve of a limit that does not require approval. A boundary is not a request for permission. It is a statement of what you will do. You cannot control whether someone raises their voice. You can control whether you remain in the conversation. You cannot control whether someone pressures you. You can control whether pressure changes your answer. You cannot control whether someone lies. You can control the access they receive after the lie. You cannot control whether someone misunderstands you. You can control whether you abandon your values to manage their opinion. This is where emotional discipline becomes relational discipline. A weak boundary says, please stop treating me this way. A strong boundary says, if this continues, I will end the conversation, and then follows through. The consequence is what gives the boundary meaning. Do not threaten what you will not enforce. Empty boundaries teach people that your words can be ignored. At the same time, do not confuse boundaries with punishment. A boundary protects your well-being and values. Punishment tries to control another person through pain. Silence used to calm down can be healthy. Silence used to make someone panic is manipulation. Distance used to recover can be healthy. Distance used to force obedience is control. Ask yourself whether your action is designed to protect or to punish. Emotional maturity also requires accepting that not every uncomfortable interaction is toxic. Some people use the language of boundaries to avoid accountability. They label correction as disrespect, disagreement as negativity, and every difficult conversation as harmful. A boundary should not become a wall against truth. The people who care about you may challenge you. They may tell you that your behavior caused harm. They may refuse to participate in your excuses. The question is not whether the conversation feels comfortable. The question is whether it remains respectful, honest, and connected to reality. Learn the difference between discomfort and danger. Discomfort can help you grow. Danger repeatedly attacks your dignity, safety, or freedom. A disciplined mind does not stay in danger to prove strength, and it does not flee every discomfort to protect the ego. You must also stop absorbing emotions that belong to other people. Someone else's panic can enter your body if you do not remain centered. Their urgency becomes your urgency. Their anger becomes your anger. Their hopelessness becomes your conclusion. Empathy does not require emotional imitation. You can sit beside someone in pain without drowning with them. You can listen without becoming responsible for fixing everything. You can care without carrying what is not yours. This is especially important with people who use emotion as leverage. Tears, anger, withdrawal, flattery, and guilt can all be genuine, but they can also be used to pressure you into compliance. The existence of emotion does not automatically prove the person's demand is reasonable. Listen to the emotion. Evaluate the request separately. You may understand why someone is upset and still say no. You may forgive someone and still reduce access. You may love someone and still leave. You may wish them well and refuse to return. Love without judgment becomes self-abandonment. Judgment without love becomes hardness. Emotional mastery holds both compassion and discernment. Your peace will sometimes cost you approval. Pay the price. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries may call your growth selfish. People who controlled you through guilt may call your independence cruel. People who expected unlimited access may call your distance betrayal. Their reaction is information, not instruction. You are not required to become cold. You are required to stop handing the steering wheel of your life to whoever expresses the strongest emotion. Protect your peace, but remain teachable. Care deeply, but think clearly. Love people, but do not disappear inside their needs. Chapter 8. Make decisions that survive pressure. Your life is the accumulated result of decisions made in ordinary moments and difficult ones. Emotional mastery matters because emotion influences every decision: what you begin, what you avoid, whom you trust, what you tolerate, how you spend, when you speak, and when you leave. Under pressure, the mind seeks certainty. It wants an answer that removes discomfort. But a fast answer is not always a good answer. The disciplined decision-maker separates urgency from importance. Urgent emotion says, do something now. Importance asks, what action will still make sense later? Before a major decision, examine your state. Are you angry, lonely, ashamed, exhausted, excited, or afraid? None of these states automatically disqualifies the decision, but each can distort it. Anger exaggerates offense. Loneliness exaggerates connection. Shame exaggerates failure. Excitement exaggerates opportunity. Fear exaggerates danger. Exhaustion exaggerates difficulty. Name the distortion before you trust the conclusion. Then separate what you know from what you assume. Write the facts in plain language. Remove predictions, motives, and dramatic interpretations. A decision built on imagined certainty is fragile. Next, identify the cost of action and the cost of inaction. People often calculate only one side. They ask what will happen if they leave, but not what will happen if they stay. They ask what will happen if they take the risk, but not what years of avoidance will cost. They ask what honesty might damage, but not what secrecy is already destroying. Every decision has a price. Maturity means choosing the price that serves your values. Use your future self as a witness. Imagine yourself 1 year from now looking back. Which choice creates self-respect? Which choice merely creates immediate relief? Which regret would be heavier, the pain of disciplined action or the pain of continued avoidance? Do not ask only, what do I feel like doing? Ask, what kind of person does this decision train me to become? Every decision is a vote for an identity. Keeping a promise votes for reliability. Telling the truth votes for courage. Walking away from disrespect votes for self-respect. Doing the difficult task votes for discipline. Delaying gratification votes for freedom. One vote does not create an identity, but repeated votes do. Pressure also reveals whether your values are real or decorative. It is easy to claim honesty when the truth is convenient. It is easy to claim loyalty when sacrifice is small. It is easy to claim discipline when motivation is high. A value becomes real when it costs you something. This does not mean choosing pain for its own sake. It means refusing to sell your principles for comfort. Good decisions often feel worse in the beginning and better in the end. Bad decisions often feel better in the beginning and worse in the end. Learn to recognize that pattern. Avoidance feels good now and creates anxiety later. Preparation feels difficult now and creates confidence later. Impulsive spending feels good now and creates pressure later. Saving feels restrictive now and creates options later. Dishonesty feels protective now and creates fear later. Truth feels dangerous now and creates clarity later. The emotional brain discounts the future. Discipline brings the future into the room. When a decision is reversible, act without endless overthinking. When it is difficult to reverse, slow down. Not every choice deserves the same amount of analysis. Choosing a meal is not choosing a partner. Sending a routine email is not ending a career. Match the weight of thought to the weight of consequence. Overthinking is not always wisdom. Sometimes it is fear wearing the clothes of analysis. If you have enough information, your values are clear, and the next step is reversible. Movement may teach you more than another week of worry. Clarity often comes after action, not before it. Make the best decision available with the information you have. Then take responsibility for adjusting when new information appears. A strong person is not someone who never changes course. It is someone who changes course without lying about why. Pressure will always exist. The goal is not to wait for perfect calm. The goal is to create a process stronger than the pressure. Pause. Check your state. Separate facts from stories. Measure both costs. Consult your values. Choose the action your future self can respect. Then move. Chapter 9. Turn pain into strength without worshipping it. Pain changes people, but it does not automatically improve them. Pain can create wisdom, or it can create bitterness. It can deepen compassion, or it can justify cruelty. It can clarify priorities, or it can become an identity that prevents growth. Suffering is not a certificate of character. What matters is what you practice while suffering. When life hurts, the mind searches for meaning. It asks, "Why me?" Sometimes there is no satisfying answer. Some losses are unfair. Some betrayals are senseless. Some opportunities disappear despite effort. Emotional mastery does not require pretending that every wound was secretly a gift. It requires refusing to let the wound make every future decision. You may have been betrayed, but not everyone is the person who betrayed you. You may have failed, but not every new attempt is the old failure. You may have been abandoned, but not every distance is rejection. You may have lost time, but the remaining time is not worthless. Pain becomes a prison when the past is allowed to predict every future. Healing begins when you tell the truth about what happened without building your entire identity around it. You can say, "This hurt me," without saying, "This is all I am." You can say, "I was treated unfairly," without making victimhood your permanent role. You can acknowledge damage and still accept responsibility for recovery. This distinction is essential. What happened may not be your fault, but healing is now your responsibility. That is not fair. It is reality. Waiting for the person who harmed you to repair everything gives them continued control. Waiting for the world to apologize delays your life. Justice may matter, accountability may matter, and support may be necessary, but your recovery cannot depend entirely on another person's transformation. Take back the work. Grieve what was lost. Grief is not weakness. It is the process of adjusting to reality when reality has changed. Do not rush it, but do not turn it into a permanent home. There is a difference between feeling pain and feeding pain. Feeling pain means allowing sadness, anger, and disappointment to move through you honestly. Feeding pain means repeatedly reopening the wound through fantasy, revenge, comparison, and endless mental replay. The mind may revisit the event because it believes another review will finally change the ending. It will not. At some point, reflection stops producing insight and starts producing injury. Ask whether the memory is teaching you something new or merely punishing you again. Resilience is not the ability to remain untouched. It is the ability to be affected without being permanently directed by the impact. A resilient person bends, learns, adapts, and returns. They may return changed. They may carry scars. They may need help, but they do not surrender authorship of the rest of their life. Build resilience through small returns. Return to sleep. Return to movement. Return to work. Return to people who are safe. Return to routines that remind you who you are beyond the pain. Return to purpose before motivation fully returns. You do not need to feel whole before taking a healthy step. Healthy steps are part of how wholeness is rebuilt. Pain can also sharpen standards. It can teach you what you will no longer tolerate, what signs you ignored, what values matter, and where your strength was underdeveloped. Take the lesson without thanking the harm. You do not owe gratitude to what broke you. You owe yourself wisdom from what happened. The final victory is not proving that the pain meant nothing. It meant something. The victory is proving that it does not get the final word. Chapter 10. The Code of Self-Mastery. Control of the mind is not a single achievement. It is a daily agreement with yourself. You will not wake one morning completely beyond fear, anger, temptation, or doubt. There is no final level where emotion disappears and discipline becomes effortless. Life changes, pressure returns in new forms. Old triggers may reappear when you are tired, grieving, or uncertain. Mastery is maintenance. The foundation is simple. Notice what you feel. Name it accurately. Pause before action. Regulate the body. Question the story. Choose according to values. Accept the consequence. Repeat. Simple does not mean easy. These actions must be practiced when the mind wants the opposite. The code begins with responsibility. Stop blaming emotion for behavior. Anger may explain the words, but it does not excuse them. Fear may explain the avoidance, but it does not complete the task. Hurt may explain the distance, but it does not justify cruelty. Your emotions are real. Your choices are still yours. The code continues with honesty. Do not call avoidance peace. Do not call control love. Do not call impulsiveness authenticity. Do not call self-neglect kindness. Do not call endless preparation patience. Name behavior correctly. You cannot change what you keep disguising. The code requires standards. Decide who you are before the difficult moment arrives. Decide how you speak when angry. Decide what you refuse when lonely. Decide what you protect when excited. Decide what you do when motivation disappears. A standard removes debate. The code requires recovery. You will fail. You will react badly. You will break a promise, miss a warning sign, or return briefly to an old pattern. The undisciplined response is to use one failure as permission for total collapse. The disciplined response is immediate correction. Apologize. Repair. Study the trigger. Change the system. Begin again. Do not turn a mistake into an identity. Do not waste a week because you lost an hour. The code requires courage. Emotional control is not hiding from life. It is entering life with enough steadiness to face truth, risk rejection, tolerate uncertainty, and take action without guarantees. Courage is not calmness before the act. Often, calmness comes after the act has been repeated. Do the difficult conversation afraid. Submit the work uncertain. Leave the harmful situation grieving. Begin the new path unprepared. Confidence is the memory of survived action. The code requires patience. You are changing patterns built over years. Progress may appear uneven. Some days you will respond with wisdom. Other days an old reaction will surprise you. Measure direction, not perfection. Are you noticing earlier? Recovering faster? Speaking more clearly? Keeping stronger boundaries? Making fewer decisions from panic? Returning to your commitments sooner? That is growth. The code requires purpose. Discipline without purpose becomes empty control. You are not mastering emotion merely to appear powerful. You are mastering it so you can love without losing yourself, work without being ruled by mood, lead without being ruled by ego, and endure hardship without becoming someone you do not respect. Your mind is powerful, but power without direction becomes destruction. Give it a mission. Let your mission be larger than comfort. Let your values be stronger than impulse. Let your future matter more than the emotion of the moment. There will be days when no one sees the battle. You will smile while resisting panic. You will remain silent while anger demands a weapon. You will walk away while loneliness begs you to return. You will continue while doubt predicts failure. Those invisible victories are the true shape of self-mastery. The world may never know how close you came to surrender. It does not need to know. You will know. And each time you choose consciously, you send yourself a message: I can be trusted with my own life. That trust is confidence at its deepest level. Not the confidence that everything will go your way. The confidence that whatever happens, you will not automatically abandon yourself. You will listen to emotion, but you will not kneel before it. You will respect pain, but you will not build your identity around it. You will experience fear, but you will not let fear write every decision. You will feel anger, but you will not hand it your voice without question. You will desire comfort, but you will remember the future. This is how control is taken back, not through domination of the world, but through leadership of the self. Your life will continue to bring uncertainty. People will disappoint you. Plans will fail. Success will test you as much as hardship. You cannot control all of it, but you can control the principles you return to. Pause before reacting. Tell yourself the truth. Protect your standards. Choose the next right action. Return when you fall. Do this long enough, and emotion becomes energy instead of authority. Pressure becomes a test instead of a master. Pain becomes part of your history instead of the owner of your future. The mind you discipline becomes the life you direct. Control your mind, and you take back your choices. Control your choices, and you reshape your habits. Control your habits, and you transform your character. Transform your character, and your life can no longer remain the same. The work begins now. Not when you feel ready. Not when the world becomes easier. Not when the past is fully understood. Now. In the next breath. In the next thought you choose to believe. In the next urge you refuse to obey. In the next action that proves your future is stronger than your feeling. Master your emotions. Take back control, and become the person your life has been waiting for.